Welcome to the Strong Bull Podcast, where we break down the world of fitness and performance with no fluff, just facts. Whether you're an athlete, fitness enthusiast, or someone looking to build better performance in your everyday life, this is the place for you. Each week, we dive into the latest trends, practical tips, and expert advice on everything from fitness education, programming for different populations, to helping you unlock your full potential. So whether you're looking to optimize your training, learn something new, or just get motivated, we've got you covered. Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Strong Bull Podcast. I'm here with my co-host, Dom Dixon, and my man, Rob Dela Cruz. We're here from Cerus Performance. So we're going to talk today, guys, about one of our favorite topics, and that is exercise selection. And the first topic today is going to be, are there bad exercises, or is it the person themselves? What do you think, Rob?
Well, you'll hear some people say there's no bad exercises. And I can kind of I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
Definitely bad exercises for individuals that they probably shouldn't do or shouldn't do in certain environments, definitely.
Absolutely. I agree. I personally think there are bad exercises. And what I mean by that is there's exercises that people make up that are movements and they're not exercise. I define an exercise is an actual movement that you can repeatedly do that gives you some type of physical or psychological benefit. I don't think that doing some bendy, twisty stuff just to see what your body can do is exercise. At that point, I think you're just playing, which is fine. You can explore. I explore all the time. There's movements that I've done once and that I'll probably never do again because I was exploring. I wouldn't say that they're exercises. I would never put those in an exercise library, but I do think there's bad exercises.
Yeah, and so if we go in and we look at Olympic lifts, which a lot of people are kind of scared, and some people shouldn't do.
Yeah.
But if you look at, let's say, the one that expresses the most, flexibility, movement, it shows some athleticism, is the full snatch.
Yeah.
Okay, if you had the requisite of mobility and you have the skill set to go and do it, great.
Yes.
I'm even okay with if you have all those and you've done it repetitionally and you've even done it in a workout with other things that fatigue you a little bit, but now you're starting to it's getting a little more costly.
Yes, absolutely.
The individuals that should do that, it's starting to become a smaller and smaller group.
Yeah.
Now, an individual that doesn't have the mobility or the requisite skills probably should not do that.
No.
Not only not at all, but definitely not in some kind of fatigue state.
Yeah, I agree.
But let's go back and grab the person that does have all these skills. You can make that a bad exercise if you completely fatigue them.
Yeah.
And then have them do it. You can it can start getting a little bit of danger.
Yeah. What's that? There's a strength and conditioning coach that talks about the one more method with fatigue, like sprints, for instance. You stay in that 75 to 92% range. And I forget his name, it's slipping my head, but he talks about that. He has sprinters that he'll sprint and he times every single interval. And you have one opportunity to dip below the previous time and then the workout's over. But I think that same environment, people get, and that's where exercises get bad, right? It goes back to our point about CrossFit and how a lot of people will get to that tolerable stage where they're just tolerating the movement, tolerating the suffrage, as opposed to optimally training or optimally exercise selecting. I think a lot of people do that where they get in that, where they want to go past the point of tolerable and then get into suffrage. There's difference. You can suffer through some stuff. I don't think you should suffer through everything. I think that's where exercises, I think, are bad for sure. There can be bad exercises.
Oh, definitely. And it's definitely the environment to do that can make them bad for an individual, because you can have a person that does any of the Olympic lifts and they do it and they have rest between and they're working on the timing and getting underneath it. And then you can have them do it in a workout that's fatiguing them. Now now you're starting to become a bad exercise.
Yeah, well, you said every exercise under fatigue becomes a low back
It
exercise.
does. It
That's,
does because you realize like your lower back is involved a lot. Now, the more complex the exercise,
yeah,
the worse it becomes under fatigue.
yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and, and that's it. Like that's just a general of like with most people. Now
Yeah,
there are high level athletes that we see out there that can handle it and they understand how to pace properly and keep their composure.
absolutely. Yeah,
Great, more power to them.
yeah,
But when it comes to the general, like the majority of the people, that there's not many.
yeah. So if if you had to put somebody that was a general population athlete or client in the best possible environment, what would that look like to them? Like
Well,
to perform some of these borderline, you know, bad.
complex.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it would be having plenty of time to work on the skill and practice of it,
some
and
prereqs
that's
before.
between,
Yeah, I think
and for long periods of time, and then exposure of that over probably years
yeah,
before you even try to get them into some kind of fatigue state.
absolutely. I think a lot of people don't program like prereqs into their training. It's like you've seen it. You've been in gyms where you walk right in, and day one, Jim, who's an accountant, is doing overhead squats his first day in the gym, and he's like, "This guy was just at his desk paper pushing a second ago. Now he's doing overhead squats. He's doing kipping pull-ups, or he's doing multiple X times his body weight on a deadlift." And it's like, okay, this guy just walked in. But I think people are so afraid to go backwards before they go forward in a lot of that sense because they think that they're missing out, or again, back to that too much information, I should be doing more, and they're jumping the gun, which is also something that we see a lot of the time. So
I mean, once you add a factor of fatigue,
yeah,
you can make almost all exercises become inherently more dangerous,
yeah,
and it can start to be bad.
absolutely.
Now, saying that, I think there's definitely something to understanding how to do complex stuff
Yeah,
and exercises under fatigue.
yeah.
I just don't think it should be done very often, or that's the only way it's done, which we often see.
Or it can even be put into a pre-test, mid-test, post-test kind of situation where you're actually learning the prereqs, doing different modalities in between, retesting, seeing where you're at, not using it as a marker of progression, but more so of progress, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's something that I personally do. I hardly ever program Olympic lifts virtually, obviously, because of the fact that I'm not in person, but even in general, there's other ways around it. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people do have bad exercise selection and use movements that should not be exercises for said person and implement them into their program because of the structure of how they already program or what they believe in.
Yeah, there has to be a lot of practice on exercises
Yeah.
before you even start to introduce any kind of fatigue.
Like
Like
any
it's
movement.
over and over, that movement pattern needs to be ingrained.
Yes, absolutely. I agree.
Because every time you go ahead and you start doing it under fatigue and that movement pattern starts to deviate,
Yeah.
then you're ingraining that. And I can promise you that fatigue state will ingrain further
Oh yeah.
than the practice
Yeah.
that you've been doing.
That's like bad running mechanics. Once you learn how to run bad, you can't fix it.
It's hard. I mean, it happens. Like I say this all the time, like weight and fatigue are truth serums. And what happens is I truly see how someone moves.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so a lot of times they move well, but once I fatigue them, they start breaking down. You're like, oh, this is how they really move. So you need to be careful about doing that with them.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
know, now you have some individuals that they only learn one way and they move really well and they almost don't break down.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see them going into it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. And you kind of, but you have those one out of a million people who can do stuff like
Oh, it's very rare.
very,
They're
very
usually like they're pretty high level. Like,
yeah.
yeah.
Their fatigue looks very fresh, and
Well,
it's
also a lot of times when you get a really high level athlete, Dom, and the like would say for instance snatch or clean, and it's off, they back away.
yeah. Yep.
And they're like, well, they'll take a second because they have like the awareness.
Yes,
and their
absolutely.
composure to say, "Ooh, I got to back. I'm not efficient. Something was wrong with that."
Yeah.
That about them, like the individual that's kind of like intermediate and lower,
Mhm.
will keep on trying to go back.
Yep. Yep. Keep hammering away. I was just about to say that the body awareness key factor is huge with those
Yes.
elite athletes. And even with the people who are at that mid level, they don't have that sense of being in that position where they have body awareness. My body, my posture's off, or I'm out of breath, my cadence is off when I'm running, all those things. And they don't have that self-awareness check to be like, okay, let's regroup, let's take a beat and get back after it.
And one more thing I want to jump on is like with the bad exercises. Another thing that can make a bad exercise is the wrong exercise pairing.
Oh yeah, we say that all the time.
So if you fatigue muscle groups
Yeah.
that are needed to stabilize for a
A
big
larger
movement,
movement. Yeah,
you can make that dangerous. You fatigue
absolutely.
the low back, or you fatigue the grip, or you fatigue the shoulders,
Yeah.
and you need that for another exercise to stabilize. Now we're starting to turn those exercises into bad exercises.
And even that with the double dipping, like when people repeat movement patterns in the actual movement itself is another dangerous thing we talk about.
Yeah.
Like that's when I think exercise pairing and exercise order is a very important thing. So even when you're structuring a workout and you have something that's extremely pec heavy, and then you go try to separate the pec by doing something body weight, that's where you see a lot of issues happen. A lot of people with overuse injuries or nagging injuries, nerve pinching, all those things come into play because people don't look at things from a bird eye view. Or
Yeah, and I mean it's just you add time, enough fatigue, and way too much volume and reps for an individual. A good exercise goes bad.
yep,
Even if they move well, it can go bad for them.
absolutely. No, Rob, that was perfect. That's a great way to end the episode today. So jury's in. What do you think? You think it's still there is no bad exercises, or
There's definitely bad exercises for individuals.
absolutely? I couldn't agree more. All right, guys, thanks again for listening to this episode of the Strong Bull Podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.